All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Helene is here. Jeb is here. Thank you for continuing to stick with us, stay with us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. So we have a special guest here on Live Impact News. I'm excited about this one. So, and as you know, all week long, and even beyond just this 1 week, as we commemorate and look back and reflect on 1 year since Hurricane Helene. We've been telling the stories of survivors of the rebuilding of Western North Carolina. Those folks still have a long way to go, but it is great. It's sort of my takeaway. It's great to see those folks continue to come together to rebuild the resiliency. Guest that we're having on is, excuse me, a collaborator with Good Trouble Productions, and he recently launched the Appalachia Comics Project to help people in Western North Carolina tell their own stories. Andrew Aydin is here. Andrew, who lives in, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Andrew, who lives in Western North Carolina, is a New York Times bestselling author, National Book Award winner, co-author, alongside the late U.S. Congressman John Lewis, a graphic memoir, March, and its sequel, Run, which chronicles Lewis's life in the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. Again, embarked on this really cool project, Appalachia Comics Project, working with among dozens of beloved comic book creators participating in this project. Andrew, I know that was a big intro, but I just want to say thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News.
No, Nick, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this because we gotta tell these stories.
Yeah, very important stories. I guess let's start here. How did this sort of come about, this project come about?
Yeah, I live in Edneyville. I had moved to, this is my mother's farm. She had in many ways built it from the ground up, and I moved there after Congressman Lewis passed, and I left his congressional staff, and I love it's the Apple Valley, and I love my neighbors, and I love the community that we have out there in Edneyville, and then Helene hit. And I was out there in a way that really it was terrifying. I mean, I'd never seen society collapse like that in a way where it was like for like a week you couldn't use cash, right? You couldn't get through even the essential roads. And but what was so amazing about it is that everybody pulled together and we were taking care of one another, and you could tell who the helpers were because they just started doing the work. They didn't need permission, or they didn't, do it for, likes on Instagram or whatever. They were just going out there helping people, putting food in people's hands and fuel and everything else. And, after things started to get back a little bit closer to normal, it really became apparent to me that there was a lot of misinformation going around about what happened during Helene. I think we've had people who've, profited off of it and made all sorts of sort of wild accusations and things about what the government did or didn't do. But to me, this storm was really about how people came together to save one another, right? And this resilience of the community that we have in Western North Carolina is just a beautiful example for the rest of the state and the rest of the country. And so I did what I did. I called my friends who make comics, and I was like, guys, we gotta help my neighbors and my members of my community tell their stories so that people know what really happened during this. And we just started from there and put the word out, and one little news article in the Smoky Mountain News, and we got like 36 people asking to tell their story, more than we could possibly afford to make. And so we've been raising money, getting donations through appalachiacomics.org. We've been doing a Kickstarter. It's just all about giving people who survived the storm the opportunity to have their own voice, right? Because all too often we overlook Appalachia as a place, even though it is a region of storytellers, and they have these incredible stories that really are inspirations that we could all use right now.
Yeah, Andrew, to hit on the point you just made, I think the common misperception is, those folks in the mountains, they're isolated and But they are so friendly. They're so nice. They want to share their story. They obviously need to help there. And I want to ask. So the initiative obviously is Appalachia Comics Project, but Islands in the Sky is a anthology, and is basically pairing survivors there and folks there in Western North Carolina with these comic creators. Like, what was that like, pairing them together? And what are some of the stories that came out of that collaboration?
See, the amazing thing that people forget about Appalachia is that Appalachia loves comics, right? I mean, whether it's you read Demon Copperhead and what Barbara Kingsolver wrote about it, or I mean, this is where I read my first comic. I got it at the Piggly Wiggly over off Old Hendersonville Highway. And so to have these people who have these incredible stories, like one of them is a story about what happened to the animal rescue. Another is a story about a woman who was supposed to get married the weekend of the storm and ended up getting married anyway. And other stories are about a reporter and struggling to report the news. And then someone who got rescued from the roof of their home and just all sorts. I mean, the full breadth of the experience that people had during the storm because they're all so human. But it was amazing to first get so much support from my friends and colleagues in comics. You know, a lot of these writers like Brian Michael Bendis and Matt Fraction and Gene Yang, Alex Segura. I mean, like, there's Pulitzer Prize winners in here. There's MacArthur Fellows. I mean, these are really incredible creators, right? And so they're all stepping up and they all want to do this. And the writers are just doing this as volunteers. They're just doing it because they want to help these folks. But then when you connect them, right? Because we tried to be very deliberate about who got paired with who so that it really accentuated their story. You know, somebody might be, the perfect person to write a story about animals, or perfect person to write a story about love, right? And then I would get these notes. I remember I was at a convention in Charlotte this spring, and one of the survivors who was telling the story came up and he was like, "Oh my God, man, I can't believe I get to work with Greg Pak, who's a well-known comic writer that he was paired with." And to see that excitement, right? And then at the same time, giving them this vehicle to tell their own story and be in control of their own story, right? Which is so essential. I mean, this is something that I think people all over the country struggle with, which is that someone else is oftentimes telling our story. And what really happened, the point of view that we all individually have gets obscured in favor of sort of a muddled single narrative. And here, Islands in the Sky is a collection of these stories. They're, 8, 10, 12 pages long, and each one is a chapter by the survivor with the creators, showing in great detail exactly what happened to them. And it's not always tragic. I mean, some of these things are beautiful, right? But in the understanding of all the different experiences through this multi-chapter effort, Islands in the Sky, this allows all the people who didn't go through Helene to understand more completely and more fully all of the types of human experiences that occurred.
I do want to ask, related, a little unrelated, but related. Bear with me for a second. So I remember watching an interview that you did about 10 years ago at this point, and you were talking about your work with Congressman John Lewis, the late Congressman John Lewis, and he was wrapping up a reelection campaign, and he asked folks, what are they doing after everything, dies down? And folks said, I'm going to go with my family. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You said, I'm going to go read comics. And somehow that developed a partnership because of, he pointed out, there were comics about MLK that were very influential. Did you ever, I say all that to say, and again, thank you for bearing with me on this story. Did you ever think about the late congressman as you were developing this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Congressman Lewis always used to say, you got to tell the whole story. You got to make it plain. You got to make it real. You got to dramatize the conflict. And, part of the idea that March represents is that at the time, I was, 23, 24 years old, working as John Lewis's press secretary on his reelection campaign, right? Like, I was already in a room that folks that age don't often get into. And he trusted me to tell his story, but it was also because folks had forgotten what he had done at that point, right? They had overlooked all of the different elements of his history, right? Because he was thought of for Selma, and they'd forgotten the freedom rides and the sit-in movement and the Mississippi Freedom Summer and everything that he did in between that led to these great moments, right? And it helped in a way reinvent him. And I think that framework and that understanding that the way we've done things in the past, right? Your traditional publishing models, your traditional media efforts are not always going to work at the grassroots level, right? Because John Lewis was so grassroots, right? I mean, this was a man, I'll never forget driving him around on a campaign, and we went to the Burger King, and the lady through the drive-thru goes, "John Lewis, is that you?" You know what I mean? And so it was like he knew everybody. He loved people. And yet, even then, his story wasn't always being told the way it should have been, right? And so we had to use comics to reach audiences that weren't being reached otherwise. And so when I started thinking, Appalachia has this long history of not having their story told, of having outsiders telling their story for them rather than with them, right? I mean, this is a similar problem that they have in the Black community, where folks in the Black community don't get the opportunity to tell their story with them. They'll write a book about John Lewis. They won't write a book with John Lewis. You know what I mean? And so we got the same problem in Appalachia. And so if John Lewis helped me build this model, and we did it through friendship and partnership over a decade and a half, there's a real sort of intellectual precedent for why we should do this, right? Because it's not just convincing the survivors or even the people on the ground to read it or to make it. It's about convincing all the people around the country to support it and embrace it, right? And if we could point to John Lewis and say, look, this worked for him. This is how we bring understanding to Appalachia. This is how we bring understanding to a people who've been overlooked and neglected for decades. I mean, it was on my mind the entire time.
Yeah, Andrew, I can attest to John Lewis being a rock star. I covered him for a couple of years when I worked in Atlanta. And I think I got stiff armed by a little old lady at a ceremony he was having. I think it was the renaming of Freedom Parkway to John Lewis Freedom Parkway.
Oh yeah,
back when that happened. So I remember, just what that was like, and yeah. So to the comics, as far as Islands in the Sky, people are going to listen to this interview and they're going to say, hey, how can we get a copy? How can we help? How can folks do that?
Yeah, go to appalachiacomics.org. So appalachiacomics.org. You can get copies of Islands in the Sky by doing a late pledge to our Kickstarter, but then soon we're also going to have them available for sale. You can make donations. A number of people have contacted us because they want to buy copies to be donated to schools and libraries, which is a program we've already got running, so that when they're ready, they'll go directly into the schools and libraries. So it starts with going to appalachiacomics.org. And then from there, there's a lot of different ways to support it. The book will hopefully be in print next year. It's been really incredible to see all of the art and the storytelling coming together. Sometimes I get a little emotional, because it's like I lived through this. My neighbor passed away during the storm, right? Like these aren't just stories that happened to people I didn't know. These are friends of mine. These are community members that I've lived with now for a long time. And I'm really excited, for them to have this opportunity too, to be signing their own book and, giving it away to family members and seeing it in schools and seeing it in libraries. So anything anybody can do to support. We've raised about $32,000 for the book so far. It's going to cost about $50,000 to produce. So we definitely need to make up that gap. So that we can go to print and do all those sort of things. But it's been a perpetual campaign. We've been working really hard at it. We've gotten a lot of support from some incredible individuals. But we need more, and we need help spreading the word. So appalachiacomics.org.
Andrew, one last question before I get you out of here. And I thought about it. And you were talking about it. I mean, you lived through this. Your neighbor passed away because of Hurricane Helene. Have you been able to process what happened through storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, that's so the story I wrote for this is called Islands in the Sky. This is where the title came from, because I had to do the first story so that we knew how to start. And it comes from the fact that I went days without hearing another person's voice because we were so isolated, right? And you get a little chirp on your two-way radio between you and your neighbor, but when the floodwaters hadn't receded, we couldn't get over there. You're just on your own. And I got out my mom's old radio, put in the D batteries, turn it on, and it was so terrifying because you always imagine when you turn the dial on your radio, you can hear a station pretty quickly, right? But on that first day, you couldn't hear anything. It was just static, right? It was like the world had ended. And so I kept turning and I kept turning and I kept trying to work that dial. Finally, that night, I got a signal on the radio from a old Baptist church up on the side of the mountain, not too far from me. And they were reading out the names of the missing. And the preacher stopped and he said, we need to take a moment to say a prayer for those that we can't find right now. We often talk about this region as the land of sky, but tonight we all live on islands in the sky. And that's the story that I've been writing, what it is to feel that sense of total isolation and then hear that first voice after that experience, right? And I'll be honest, I don't know that I've really fully processed it. It's been fits and starts. I think you don't even realize at the time what you're going through. I've had a number of talks and chats with just folks where, we're doing our work, we're getting the plumbing fixed, we're doing something, and all of a sudden, this big burly plumber guy just starts talking to you about like how scary it was and how he's been feeling, and it's not what you expect, right? I mean, this is an unprecedented experiment in coping, because this is a region almost the size of Connecticut that was hit this so hard. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people displaced in some level. And yeah, it's not like the world stops. We all have to go to work. We all have to put food on the table. And we're all just trying to get by and do the best we can. But the thing that has been so meaningful to me is almost every single one of the survivors participating in these stories has said this helped. This helped them feel less afraid. This helped them feel like they accomplished something by surviving. And I think that's what we need to remember when we make projects like this. It's not just a tool for telling the story, but the story is incredibly important. It's also a way for all of us who survived to process and experience the pain, the loss, but also the hope that we made it, that we got through this, and we'll get through it again.
Yeah, as I heard recently, to put this into perspective, no matter where you live, we're all doing life together. Yeah. That's Andrew Aydin. Man, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by. Make sure you check out Appalachia Comics Project, what Andrew has going on, the Kickstarter campaign. Incredible work. Andrew, again, thank you for your time. And look, if you're just tuning into this interview will be on our digital platforms shortly. Our incredible digital team will have the full interview up. Andrew, again, thank you for your time. We'll have to have you back soon.
Please, Nick. It's good to see you. Thank you for this. And I look forward to talking more, and I appreciate the support, man. This means a lot.
Of course. Thank you, Andrew.